Ethan Parker was 24 years old when he realized how fast life could slip through your fingers. He had just finished college and moved back to his hometown in Ohio, carrying big dreams and a head full of plans. He was busy chasing deadlines, job interviews, and the kind of future that always seemed just one step ahead. What he wasn't prepared for was the phone call that came on a quiet Tuesday morning. His grandmother, Margaret Parker, had taken a sudden turn for the worse. Margaret wasn't just Ethan's grandmother. She had been his safe place growing up. When his parents worked late, she picked him up from school. When he scraped his knees, she cleaned the wounds. When he felt lost, she listened without judgment. She was kindness in human form. Ethan rushed to the hospital, his mind replaying memories he hadn't thought about in years. The smell of her apple pie. The way she hummed old songs while folding laundry. The warmth of her hand when she held his as a child crossing the street. The hospital room was quiet when he arrived. Machines beeped softly, filling the silence with reminders of time passing. Margaret lay in the bed, smaller than he remembered, her silver hair neatly brushed, her eyes closed. Ethan pulled a chair close and sat beside her. For a long moment, he said nothing. He just held her hand, feeling the familiar warmth that had always made him feel safe. When she finally opened her eyes, she smiled faintly. "There you are," she whispered. Tears filled Ethan's eyes. He tried to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. All he could manage was a nod. They talked in short moments, broken by pauses when she needed rest. Margaret asked about his job search, his plans, his life. Even now, she was more concerned about him than herself. Then, unexpectedly, she squeezed his hand. "Ethan," she said softly, "promise me something." He leaned closer. "Anything, Grandma." Her eyes searched his face, serious but gentle. "Promise me you'll always choose kindness. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Ethan swallowed. It sounded simple. Almost too simple. But something in her tone told him it wasn't just a passing thought. "I promise," he said quietly. Margaret smiled, a peaceful look settling over her face. She closed her eyes again, still holding his hand. That was the last real conversation they ever had. Margaret passed away 2 days later. The funeral was filled with people Ethan barely recognized. Neighbors, old co-workers, strangers who shared stories about how Margaret had helped them in small but unforgettable ways. She had brought meals during hard times, listened when no one else would, given rides, offered comfort. Ethan listened, stunned. He hadn't known half of what she had done for others. Her kindness had reached far beyond what he had seen. After the funeral, life rushed back in. Job rejections, bills, responsibilities. The promise he made sat quietly in the back of his mind, easy to forget in the noise of everyday stress, until one rainy evening changed everything. Ethan was driving home from a long interview that hadn't gone well. His thoughts were heavy, his mood darker than the clouds overhead. As he stopped at a red light, he noticed an older man standing on the corner, soaked to the bone, holding a cardboard sign. "Veteran. Anything helps." The light turned green. Cars moved forward. Ethan hesitated. Part of him wanted to keep driving. He didn't have much money himself. He was tired. Frustrated. Distracted. Then he remembered his grandmother's voice, "Choose kindness. Especially when it's hard." Ethan pulled over. He didn't have cash, but he offered the man a ride to a nearby shelter he knew about. The man hesitated at first, then nodded. During the short drive, they talked. The man's name was Robert. He had served in the army, lost his job, then his home. One setback after another. When Ethan dropped him off, Robert looked at him with tears in his eyes. "Most people don't even look at me," he said. "Thank you for seeing me." Those words stayed with Ethan long after he drove away. From that day on, he started paying attention. He helped a struggling coworker once he finally found a job. He checked on an elderly neighbor who lived alone. He volunteered at a local food pantry on weekends. None of it felt heroic. It felt human, but slowly, something changed. Ethan felt lighter. More connected. More grounded. One afternoon at the food pantry, he met a young single mother named Lisa who was trying to hold it together while her kids picked out canned goods. Ethan noticed her embarrassment and gently reassured her. "Everyone needs help sometimes," he said, echoing words his grandmother used to say. Lisa smiled through tears. Weeks later, she returned with news. She had found stable work and wanted to give back. She started volunteering too. Kindness, Ethan realized, had a ripple effect. Years passed. Ethan built a life rooted in the promise he made. He didn't always get it right. He had bad days. Moments of impatience. Times when choosing kindness felt inconvenient, but he kept trying. On the 10th anniversary of his grandmother's passing, Ethan visited her grave. He brought fresh flowers and stood quietly, memories washing over him. As he turned to leave, he noticed a young boy nearby, sitting alone on a bench, crying softly. Ethan hesitated, then approached. "Hey," he said gently. "Are you okay?" The boy wiped his eyes. "My grandma's in the hospital," he whispered. "I'm scared." Ethan sat beside him, listening. He didn't rush. He didn't offer empty promises. He just stayed. Before the boy's mother arrived, Ethan squeezed his shoulder. "She sounds like a wonderful grandma," he said. "Hold on to that." As Ethan walked away, his heart full, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. A peace. That promise, made in a quiet hospital room, had shaped his life in ways he never could have predicted. It had turned grief into purpose, loss into love, and pain into connection. Margaret's kindness lived on, not just in memory, but in action, and that is the true power of kindness. It doesn't end. It doesn't fade. It multiplies. So if you're watching this today, carrying your own worries, your own grief, your own busy life, remember this: kindness doesn't require perfection. It only requires choice. One small act. One moment of compassion. One promise kept. You never know whose life you might change, and sometimes, in choosing kindness, you end up saving your own too. Some promises are easy to make. Others feel small in the moment but carry the weight of a lifetime, and then there are promises you don't realize will become the very thing that changes who you are forever. This is the story of one such promise. A promise made quietly, in a room filled with fading memories, that would go on to touch more lives than anyone could have imagined. If stories like this moved your heart, take a moment to subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. It truly helps the channel grow and allows us to share more meaningful stories like this one here at Kindness Story Hub.